Hey everyone, Brian Zane here, and after a week off, I am back with the Raw review here on Wrestling with Regret. It's a brand new year, but it feels very much like the same kind of show. Let's dive in. So tonight was Legends Night, and the cold open has Hulk Hogan's disembodied voice plugging the H phone, and the whole thing's kind of like this really cheap parody of like the original iPhone commercials from like way back in the day, where it's like you can do this, this, and this, and then the whole at the end, it's also a phone, brother. Like, it's a very weird reference to put in anywhere in 2021. But I guess the average viewer of this show by now are the only people who are going to get that reference. So basically he says, what you going to do when the Hulk phone runs wild on you? What a weird opening segment, and what a fantastic use of Hulk Hogan. After that, it's time for Miz TV, and The Miz and John Morrison are breaking down what's going to be happening tonight on the show. By the way, The Miz has the Money in the Bank briefcase back because he did cash it in at TLC, but in actuality, it was John Morrison who handed the briefcase over to the referee. So by technicality, Miz gets the briefcase back. I actually really like that twist of Miz getting it back there. I still believe my bold prediction is he's going to be the first person to actually hold on to the briefcase until the year is up and it expires and he doesn't get to cash it in. The New Day show up next, and they immediately introduce their own talk show within the existing talk show, New Day Talks. And you can see The Miz getting more and more frustrated with every passing moment here, but I love John Morrison's his delivery here because he's totally into it. Like when Kofi asks questions, John answers them very earnestly and everything. I love Morrison's comedic timing and his delivery here. Finally, The Miz can stand no more. He starts throwing a tantrum. Then Teddy Long appears, and he suddenly has the power to make matches again. He almost books Miz and Morrison against The Undertaker, but Adam Pearce walks up and shoots that down right away. So Teddy then makes a tag team match play. As for the match itself, like, it was a match. It was fine to watch, nothing too spectacular. Ends when you've got Woods beating Morrison with the Shining Wizard. We get a recap of Raw last week when Randy Orton may or may not have set Alexa Bliss on fire, but then we go live to the interview area and everything's hunky-dory, and Orton basically says, he showed mercy on Alexa last week, didn't set her on fire, and he hates himself for that. He says the Fiend has changed me like he's changed everyone else he's come into contact with, and he hates himself for showing that mercy, but maybe now he can redirect that hatred and shape it and mold it so he can take that hatred out on somebody else. So he's going to go walk around and find some legends and basically remind them that he's the legend killer. Please, let's get him back in the night vision goggles disguised as the janitor. Can we get that, please? Well, last week on New Year's Eve, Angel Garza became 24/7 champion by way of TikTok video. We see him backstage now. He's flirting with Alicia Fox, who does a hi and a bye, and then he goes down the hallway and sees Sergeant Slaughter, Tatanka, and Mickie James, who I thought was still an active member of the roster, but she is kind of classified as a legend here on this night. So Angel flirts with Mickie, and Sergeant Slaughter shoos him away, calls him a maggot, and there you go. It's just one of the many times we'll see legends tonight doing something technically, but like not really doing anything. Last week, AJ Styles and Elias came to blows, which brings about this match between them. And this week, the big development is that AJ's associate his name is now pronounced Amos. So it's been quite a story, quite a journey for him, because it went from that man to Omos to Amos. So it's been a bit of an evolution there. It's a solid match here. Elias looks pretty good. He hits the chokeslam at one point on AJ, and between that and him doing the rope walk back a year or two ago, I see what he's doing. Anyway, AJ wins clean with a Styles Clash. Afterward, Jackson Riker wants to hit AJ with a guitar, but Amos kicks it out of his hands and it dissolves into bits. So between that guitar spot there and the chair shot at TLC when the chair disintegrated in Morrison's hands, like, is Amos just made of a solid lead or something? We see an interview with Charlotte Flair earlier in the day when she declares she's going to be in the Rumble match this year. Then we get a backstage bit where Matt Riddle starts talking with the Big Show about Big Show's theme song. Riddle walks off, and then in comes Randy Orton. So Big Show is his first target here. Basically, he just tries to provoke Show into fighting, but Show is very cool-headed about this and doesn't really want to do anything with him. And so yeah, Show plays it cool. Orton just kind of talks some more trash to him, how he ended Show's career, and then walks off. Our next match sees Charlotte Flair and Asuka in a non-title match with Lacey Evans and Peyton Royce. Ric Flair accompanying his daughter to the ring, and we get this pre-match promo with Lacey and Peyton where they say they're going to show the legends, who the future legends are. And Lacey puts on this trucker hat that says, Lacey the legend. And there's more kind of snide infighting with her and with Peyton, but that's not really the story of this match. The story here is that throughout the entire match, Lacey is repeatedly hitting on Ric Flair and distracting Charlotte, which as it keeps going on, it actually gets more and more entertaining, because then finally by the end, you see there's this moment here where like Lacey tries to do what could best be described as an attempt at the Flair strut at one point, but she gets like right in Flair's face, and Charlotte like checks her. And then there's this point here at the end where Flair like accidentally trips Charlotte up, but like he had all day to see that it wasn't Peyton he was tripping up. So that wasn't covered very well. So Flair trips Charlotte by accident. Peyton rolls up Charlotte to win in a big upset. And then Lacey's reaction where she plants a kiss on Flair's cheek and then walks off, that was pretty entertaining. And then Charlotte gets in her dad's face and like tells him to stay out of her business and to get out, so he kind of leaves, kind of shook looking. Like that's like the second time now Charlotte's turned heel on her dad, which I didn't think she was allowed to do anymore after he almost died. Backstage, Sheamus pumps up his pal Drew McIntyre as he gets ready for the title match later on tonight when Hulk Hogan and Jimmy Hart enter the room, and then Hogan does a great job putting over Sheamus and Drew, which I think is a much better use of his time and abilities than, say, a dumb little sketch to open the show where he's doing a very old phone commercial gag. Our next match sees Riddle versus Bobby Lashley. Riddle gets a jump on Lashley before the bell rings to really get his dander up here. A pretty creative finish when Lashley's got the full Nelson locked in. Riddle bounces off the ropes, and as he swings his legs, the referee's got to duck out of the way. So he's out of position when Riddle taps right after that. So Lashley lets him go. They think that he's won, when suddenly there's, the referee says, no, the bell's unrung. There's a bit of confusion, and Riddle capitalizes on that to roll Lashley up to win. I thought that was a pretty clever finish. I thought it shows Riddle's resourcefulness, and we see after the break, we see that Lashley and MVP are both very mad about this, and that Lashley says he's going to punish his punk ass when he sees him next. We see Mark Henry backstage giving some words of inspiration to Ricochet, and Mark's on one of those like scooters that you have after you've had Achilles surgery. So Ricochet leaves, and Randy Orton walks in to continue his verbal assault on Legends tonight. Basically says he announces he's going to be in the Rumble match this year, kind of talks down Mark for not being able to do anything. Tells him to scoot his ass on out of here, and he does. Mandy Rose is going to take on Shayna Baszler up next, but she's jumped from behind before the match begins by Baszler. Dana Brooke comes out to check on Mandy and basically challenges Shayna to an impromptu rematch from last week right then and there. It's a pretty short matchup here. Shayna gets the Kirifuda clutch locked in. Dana actually rolls Shayna up to win by pinfall, but Shayna's not done with the hold yet. She keeps the hold on. Finally, Mandy Rose recovers, and the two of them beat up Shayna and eject her from the ring. Good for Mandy and Dana. They've needed to look strong as a team. I think this does that. It definitely accomplishes that, but like at the cost of Shayna, who I'm like, man, like it's crazy to think of how much she's been downgraded so significantly since NXT. And I know NXT stuff like doesn't count on the main roster, but it's like, how do you have someone who's as much of like a pit bull as Shayna is, and like every step of the way she's been kind of like not diminished, or yeah, diminished is the word, I think. Backstage, we see Ric Flair again chatting with Molly Holly and IRS. Had a few people online tonight telling me I look like a younger version of IRS, which, thanks, I guess. It beats all the Harry Potter and Jim Cornette references I've had otherwise all these years. So anyway, Randy Orton shows up, and Molly and IRS leave, so we have some words shared between Orton and Flair, and they bring up their past just from this year when, Orton kicked Ric Flair in the skull, and Flair just wanted Orton to succeed and do well, and you won that championship, and I wanted to be there for you, but why'd you have to do this and that? Orton shuts Rick down, says, Charlotte's 10 times competitor than he'll ever be, and that now he's just a broken down, useless old man. Walks off, and apparently it's just shit on Ric Flair night tonight. And not only is it Legends night, it's take a dump on Ric Flair. Also, for somebody who's supposed to be like even more evil now than before, because like he hated himself for sparing Alexa Bliss, now he wants to direct that hate towards someone else, why is it most of the night he's just been like talking shit to older people who can't fight back? Like, last year he was beating the bejesus out of Legends. He was punting them and turning the lights off and beating them up with chairs. Like, where's that Orton? Now he's just like insulting older people. Like, that feels like a bit of a downgrade. Riddle gives a brief pep talk to Keith Lee backstage. Then in our next match, Randy Orton takes on Jeff Hardy. Now, I will say for the record, these guys have an undeniable chemistry together. They've wrestled each other so much over the years, and their styles mesh so well that I think they could wrestle 100 times and you could have a good match. That being said, I've seen these guys wrestle 100 times now, and I'm not really feeling any motivation to care about this particular matchup. I mean, the most angry and evil we see Orton in this one is a throwback to Hell in a Cell 2018 when he really tortures Jeff Hardy's big floppy earlobes. Twist of Fate is countered into an RKO for Orton to win. The Lucha House Party are backstage. They walk past Melina, who does the Lucha dance thing with them, and they just walk off, and she's just there. Hi, Melina. Bye, Melina. We then see Lucha House Party take on Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin in a non-title matchup here. Lucha House House Party with a pre-match promo in the corner where he says they're going to leave the Hurt Business mad and in 2020. Short and sweet matchup here. We get some more tension between Cedric and Shelton. Suddenly Lindsay hits the damnedest roll-up I've ever seen to beat Shelton in a big upset. Then we see MVP kind of rally the troops, and MVP's yelling at them, so he has to get your act together right now. And Cedric says, I wasn't the one who got beat, and then he walks off, and Shelton's mad about this. I really hope this does not spell the end of this group as we know it too soon, because I think the Hurt Business right now is really hitting their stride. They got all the belts. It's kind of cool momentum. I don't want to see it all just kind of like fall apart within a matter of weeks, because beginning with like these 2 losses they had on the same night. Backstage, Nikki Cross hangs out with the Amazon known as Tori Wilson. The height difference is really blatant here. Angel Garza shows up, hits on Tori, and Tori lies to him, says, ooh, my friends Cardi B and Kylie Jenner and Ariana Grande are just down the hall there, and they're waiting for you. So Angel goes into the room. It's the Boogeyman. Of course, the Boogeyman scares Angel, and he falls right into a roll-up by R-Truth. Truth gets the championship back, and then we wrap it all up with a big old damn from Mr. Damn himself, Damn Dammons. You love to see it. In your main event, Drew McIntyre defends the WWE Championship against Keith Lee, who during his entrance walks past all the legends who are on stage. It's everyone you've already seen tonight, plus Booker T and Jeff Jarrett. This match is just a big boy battle. Lee looks really good here, taking the fight to Drew for a lot of this. Pretty good story for a face versus face matchup of this type. Drew comes back. He powerbombs Lee off the apron to the corner of the announce table. I almost got a hernia looking at that bump. It looked so bad. We then get a friggin' Spanish fly off the top by Lee, and then ultimately Drew comes back, hits the Claymore to win and retain. Very good match, but then Goldberg appears. Oh dear, he already has a mark on his forehead. He presumably headbutted some locker on his way to the ring here. Goldberg says that Drew does not have respect for the legends, and he thinks, oh, Drew, you probably think that, you could beat all these guys up and that they can't cut it anymore. So he challenges Drew to a match for the championship at the Royal Rumble. Wow, that's great. A little line of logic we got to that point. And Drew's like, no, that's not what I've said. And I was about to say, yeah, like when has Drew ever sounded like that? Like even as a heel, I think he was respectful of the legends and stuff. So anyway, Drew's like, no, I'm not going to fight you, because fighting you'd be like fighting my dad. And then Drew, or as a Goldberg, I should say, shoves Drew on his ass, and we cut to black. Like, were we running a little heavy, guys? Like we didn't get to do the whole like action that was planned. Oh my God. Like, that's how we end. That's how we end the first Raw of 2021, is with Goldberg coming back to challenge Drew McIntyre for the championship apropos of nothing. Like, fuck this idea. Really? Drew versus Goldberg, that's the best you can do right now? As Drew, I know Drew has been pretty dominant, but to the point where you got to like dig into the bag of legends and get Goldberg out again. Like, I was under the impression he didn't have any more badass spears or devastating jackhammers left in him. But here he is. He's going to be getting a big old payday doing this thing for the championship. Has WWE learned nothing from the last couple of Goldberg matches? I mean, all I'm saying is Drew better win at the Rumble. And furthermore, where the hell is Carlito? He was advertised for this show. He's not even there. My grade for this week's Raw is a C-. What exactly was the point of all the legends and having Legends Night to begin with? I mean, it's just the same formula that they've done so often in the last couple of years, where it's like, let's fly in a bunch of legends and have them not really do anything for the storylines, to show up backstage to talk with other legends. If you're lucky, you're going to get one line of dialogue, and it's a high and a bye, and that's pretty much it. I just feel like, there's Flair, who was the MVP of Legends. He was all over the place tonight. And then there's Goldberg, like, who really wants to see him wrestle anymore? But besides that, you did not need the legends to justify either of those points in the story, I think. Other than that, there was some good wrestling on the show tonight with a couple of bright spots, in particular the main event, which I think was the match of the night. Orton supposedly being more evil than before and is taking it out on Jeff Hardy's earlobes. Feels like a misstep though. But what did you all think of Raw this week? Let me know in the comments section below, and do stay tuned for this Wednesday when I drop my Best of Wrestling in 2020 countdown to top 16. Yes, I was able to find 16 good things about last year. So check that out this Wednesday, and 2 weeks from this week, it's going to be the worst of countdowns. So buckle in for that, folks. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.